Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Good Saturday morning, DFW. We've got a wonderful show today, and our first guest is a longtime friend. She's a Renaissance woman, businesswoman, former mayor of Colleyville, speaker, the author of 2 must-read books. The first one, Cinderella Has Cellulite, and Other Musings from a Last Wife, and her new book, Sex and the Siren, Tales of a Later Dater. Donna Arp Weitzman is my guest. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Likewise, it's wonderful interviewing an old friend, and I am so excited to interview you because your books are taking off.
Yes, they are.
Tell me about what inspired. Let's talk about the first one, Cinderella.
Okay, yeah, my first book was Cinderella Has Cellulite. And actually, I just started writing little musings about dating later in life. I got divorced after I was mayor, and I was about 56 years old at the time, and was thrust into the dating world. And I do mean thrust because it was much more difficult than dating in your 20s, I will assure you. So after I remarried, I started telling stories to my girlfriends and different people about things that happened while I was dating. And they said, oh, you should write that down. So I did, never thinking it was going to be a book. And after I got about 150 pages, people kept saying, why don't you publish that? And so I did. And so that's how Cinderella Has Cellulite came about.
And some people have compared it to kind of a mature Sex and the City.
Right.
How would you describe there's some satire in the book. Mm-hmm. Is this something that only women would like?
No, actually, men read it too. It's primarily women. The book is now sold all over the world. In fact, I saw it in Japan when I was there last year.
Kidding.
And my first purchaser on Amazon, the book is sold in bookstores and was in the airports this last summer, but it's sold on Amazon as well. And my first purchaser that I knew about who emailed me was from Australia. So the book sells all over the world. Mm-hmm.
Now, you were telling me off the air that when you were writing it, it's the job of an author is kind of lonely because you're writing it and you're thinking to yourself, I hope people will like this. Are you surprised at how quickly it took off?
Well, I really didn't even think about whether people would like it or not. I was really writing it for myself as a sort of cathartic to kind of get over the trauma of dating and remarrying because things happened I never even dreamed of. And so it wasn't something that I really thought about. But yes, am I surprised? Stunned is more the word.
Okay, now we can't name names. We don't want to violate some confidentiality. But your book has gotten the attention of Hollywood.
Yes, it has been written. I sent it out. The book's been out about 1.5 years, and I sent it after about 6 months to Hollywood, not thinking I'd ever get any bites. And actually, an old friend of mine in Hollywood that used to work for me 20 years ago, 15 years ago, is now a Hollywood writer and quite famous. And so I sent him the book, and he took it to different producers, and a producer became interested, and now I have a Hollywood agent, and the script has been written, and the script is, to me, funnier than the book.
Oh, my
I love
goodness.
the script. These people in Hollywood really know what they're doing. They're amazing.
Can you insist on starring as yourself?
No. In fact, I insist on not. I'm too old to be Cinderella. Cinderella actually sells anywhere from women like really 32 to 70 is kind of the target market, which is a big market, and Amazon and actually Barnes & Noble told me that there's 43 million women that are targeted for the book. So it's been a big seller from that standpoint. But the script uses Cinderella as a basis, but to me it's funnier because you can see it instead of just reading it.
Okay, let's talk about your second book because is it a follow-up book? Is it
it's
related?
Become that. It really didn't start out that way. I was on a cruise ship with my new husband, Herb Weitzman, and I was in the library reading of the cruise ship, and I saw this older woman making moves, for lack of a better term, on this younger hunkish man. And it just came to me how funny it was. And so I wrote a chapter sitting there, and then I just started observing in the world that I was in, traveling around, cougars and kittens. I call the cougars the older women, the kittens are when they're with an older man. So it just has funny scenes to me. So it became a book before it was named. And I thought of the siren, being the woman that attracts all the men. And so Sex and the Siren came out, and I told my publisher it's just sort of Tales of a Later Dater. And that's what it is. So
I love it. My guest right now, Donna Arp Weitzman. Her website is DonnaArpWeitzman.com, just like it sounds. So what, as you think about your career, because you've had such a successful career in so many different arenas, is this your legacy? I mean, do you feel like your author?
Am I over the hill after this one? But that's a fair question. No, every decade of my life has brought something totally different. And I never really know what it is. I'm sort of I know we have a therapist and a psychologist here. I guess I'm sort of gestaltish. Whatever happens, just happens. And I'm not a great planner. I'm not one that sets out my goals for 10 years or, the next lifetime. I just sort of seize the moment.
I love it, and I love how you inspire people. I think about people like Orville Redenbacher. He didn't become famous until he was in his 60s.
Right.
Colonel Sanders didn't become. So, is there kind of a never too old, get started? If you got stuff on your bucket list, get going.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm one that believes every day brings a new day, and I'm just never sure. Like the book publishing business, I didn't even know, and I didn't even know one editor. I mean,
Wow.
I knew nobody in that industry, and I was having a party at my house, and a lady called and said, could she bring her friend? And her friend ended up being a book book editor, and now she's edited all my books.
Oh my goodness!
So life just brings you new experiences and new people.
Give there are probably people listening right now who are thinking, well, I might have a book in me.
Don't we all, though?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a saying in the book world, the one-day novel. I'm going to write a novel one day, and one day never happens.
That's right.
What words of encouragement would you give to people who think they have a book in them?
I would say sit down and start writing. Don't try to put any structure to it. Just write it on your cell phone. That's how I started. I just went to notes on my cell phone and started taking notes. And one day is today, because we don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. And what a great legacy to have is to leave your name out in print. Because now with Amazon and all of the online booksellers, it's always going to be there.
Wow.
It never leaves.
What's some of the best feedback that you've gotten on your book? I mean, are people saying that they identify with a character in the book or?
No, because the character is Cinderella in the first book, and then the second book, it's the siren. So it's not a particular person. All of the stories in both books are true.
Okay.
There's nothing made up on either book. And they came from my friends, people I met, people I talked to, and me. So you just have to guess which ones happened to me and which ones happened to someone else. But I think when it was reviewed early on by some magazines in New York, and one compared it to a mature Sex and the City, the other one compared it to Sex and the City and the Golden Girls.
Oh, goodness.
So if you actually think about life is so funny and so satirical. And really, you don't have to make anything up. Just sit down and start writing your book.
Would you say, is it easier to date in your later years because you're more comfortable in your own skin, or is it more intimidating?
You may be more comfortable in your own skin, but other people aren't as comfortable with your skin, which I compare to an alligator skin. When I was mayor, I was termed one time as she has alligator skin, and now I know what they meant. But no, I think probably it's traumatic dating early as well. I have a son that's 30 that's in the dating world, and I think you're less secure. But when you're thrust into the dating world again, because I hadn't planned to get a divorce, it was a sudden mistress kind of situation, and all of a sudden I'm out there. There's a lot of traumatic things that happen. Number one, there's online dating. One man I sat down with at lunch at Cafe Pacific in Dallas, I'm going to give you a plug because I love Cafe Pacific, and he pulled out all the pictures of the people who had wanted to date him from eHarmony. and showed me. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm better or worse. What do they look like from here down? But I was so traumatized. I went and told the waiter, let's go through the lunch quickly. I don't feel well.
Oh, my goodness. Well, give some advice to the later dater. Would you suggest a lunch date because there's a little finality to it and it doesn't have to be an evening? Or what advice? Just coffee or?
Well, I write a column occasionally. I've written for Huffington Post and many, many other newspapers now across the country and magazines. And the one thing I say is keep your toe in the water. You can't get a fish if you don't have some bait out there.
Right.
So, and your bait may not be perfect. That's the Cinderella part. We want to be perfect, but we know we all have problems, and that's the cellulite part.
I love that. You are a soundbite machine. Okay, so we only have about a minute left in this segment. Give us some kind of final thoughts and remind people how to get your books.
Oh, well, you can buy my book on Amazon.com, obviously, either one of them. Barnes & Noble carries my book. I've done book signings. Steinmart had me do book signings for them all over the country last year, which was great fun. So you can get the book almost anywhere. Gosh, just go to Google and they'll both pop up. Sex and the Siren's so new it doesn't have the entries Cinderella has, but Cinderella has cellulite sold almost everywhere.
Okay, one final bit of advice for the people listening who are thinking, well, maybe I need to get out there in the dating scene. What's your advice?
Go read my book, CinderellaHasCellulite.com, and Sex and the Siren, and then number 2, get out there. Don't worry about what you're wearing. Don't worry about there's a man out there for you or a woman out there for you. So there's always someone. And, I always tell my son, don't be so picky. And he's like, Mom, that's not advice that moms give to sons.
I love it. Donna Arp Weitzman, my guest. Thank you for being on the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been great fun.
Thank you. Okay, when we come back, how's that New Year's resolution to lose weight and get in shape going? If you've already started to give up on your goals, we have an expert in studio who's going to help you finish the fight. That's next on the Jeff Crilley Show.
More of the Jeff Crilley Show coming up.